Hello, it's Dr. Stephanie, the founder of Your Healing Place and the author of the From Panic to Empowerment books. And today is another installment of a recap of Girls Night Out conversations. So if you're just joining me for the first time, Girls Night Out is a Zoom experience that I have every other Friday. It used to be every Friday, but I started getting burnt out. So I transitioned the opportunity of having that experience, Girls Night Out, every other Friday. And the reason why I do it is because before COVID, I used to have these events in my office with clients to connect with other people, to share the journey together, because it's easier to do something different when you have a group of people doing it together. There's something to be said about community. And I had to figure out, how do I keep community going when I can't bring clients to the office? So I started the Girls Night Out, and it started growing, and then I started realizing, you know what? This probably needs to be a series of YouTube channels, because a lot of people are saying, oh, I missed that thing and I missed that one. And it seems that when I record the Zoom experiences, it's not necessary to look. I want to have consistently for somebody to see. So I am creating these individual videos based on the topics that happen during Girls Night Out. So if you want to be in a conversation with a whole bunch of people going back and forth, then absolutely subscribe, like, and share, or email me your email address so I can put you on our subscriber list, and then that way you can get an invite specifically for the Zoom experience. So that's why I'm here today. So one of the topics that we talked about on the Girls Night Out was the reality of relationships. That was one that you need to hold on to your pearls for, because the reality of relationships and the experience of COVID is something to be discussed. Statistics have popped up all over the place about what this lockdown experience is creating for families. There's a rise in domestic violence, abuse of all types. And so we're not going to talk about the abuses right now. We're going to talk about the things that you can do, or concepts that you can understand from a wellness perspective, to make sure that your relationships not only survive but thrive in this experience of this new weird. I call it the new weird. I refuse to accept it as a new norm. And so without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, relationships. I'm not just talking about the relationships with your significant other. I'm talking about relationships with your children, relationships with your parents or with your extended family, all the things and concepts that you can think of to mean relationship. Now, relationship by definition is, here's a loose definition, how you interact with another. What is the relationship, right? And so let's talk about it from a physiological perspective, and let's start with diet. I know it's like, we're going off the beaten path here. Trust me, it's gonna all come together. So when you eat, your body is expected to chew your food, have it go through your gastrointestinal system, eventually to get to your elimination system. In between there, your body's job is to take the nutrients out of the food that you ate and use it for its healing and for its recovery and for its daily use, for metabolism. Now, in this new weird, you could be eating a whole bunch of stuff, or trying a whole bunch of stuff that you didn't necessarily try before. And that could be on the positive spectrum, and on the spectrum that would probably give your body some challenges. But at the end of the day, the whole point of whatever it is, you're supposed to be able to pull out the nutrients out of that food for utilization. So guess what happens when your diet goes haywire? You're not able to assimilate food properly, and you're not going to get the nutrients that your body needs to restore itself. And so when you are minerally or nutritionally imbalanced or malnourished, then it will affect, guess what? Your emotions. Did you know that if you have, let's say a practitioner told you that you were anemic, right? Anemia will manifest in, low oxygen, low hemoglobin, all the things you know about anemic make you tired. But let's just say you don't necessarily have an iron deficiency, but iron is not being expressed even though your body's getting it and it's being absorbed. It's not being absorbed, but it's being stored in your tissues. So stored iron in your tissues can make you very irritable, belligerent, and stubborn. What would cause you to have stored iron instead of utilization of iron? Well, a copper deficiency would have an impact on that. But also if you have toxic elements in your body like cadmium or lead or mercury or arsenic or aluminum, those things can bind your nutritional elements, making them not expressed in your system. They become toxic and your body will not only physiologically manifest something that you don't like, but it will also affect your mood. If you eat a lot of carbohydrates, it's going to slow down your thyroid gland, cause calcium to deposit. From a physical perspective, you're going to be cold hands and cold feet. You're going to have dry skin. You may have heavy cycles, and you'll be depressed. And when somebody says, come on, can you do such and such? You can't move. And when you can't move because you have no energy, and you're expected to work in the framework of a family dynamic of everybody doing their chores correctly so the house can run properly, and you're not holding your weight, then it's going to cause some resentment. But nobody's going to look at you and say, well, her calcium is probably low, and I understand why she has this level of blahness and she's not, what they're going to say? Lazy behind. Everybody else is doing what they need to do, and she just laying around who she thinks she is, and she expected you know how we get. But the truth is, your interaction with the people you're in relationship with can be about their malnourished state and how it manifests from a physiological and an emotional state. Another instance is if you have a person who has a lot of stress, or they're stressed out. When you're stressed out, you're going to find that, you're not going to find. From a physiological perspective, a few things happen. Let's kind of talk about that really quickly. One of the things that's going to happen is your adrenal gland is going to stop digestion because it's trying to save you. If you're stressed out, your energy is going to fight or flight, not digestion. So digestion will stop in the gut. All your blood flow will go into your extremities, and you'll find that you'll start getting puffy. You'll get puffy because your adrenal gland, the adrenal cortex, its job is to regulate salt and water. So even though you have this fight or flight going on with this salt circulating and you're all hyperactive and you're all over the place, that water is going to come from your cells to dilute it, and you're going to start getting puffy. When you get puffy, you can also start getting tired. And you might also start having this excess circulation of salt in the tissues, and it'll make you hyperactive, belligerent, kind of like a bully. And then instead of your family members seeing you as having an adrenal response, they're saying, why are you so mean? Why are you doing this? Why? It becomes a challenge. So one of the ways that you can create balance in your relationships is to understand that something as simple as your diet, number one. Number two, how you're assimilating your nutrients or not assimilation, number two, can have effect on how you show up in your environment. That's true. So when somebody has a magnesium deficiency, you know what they'll do? They might like to crunch ice. So imagine somebody, you're watching your favorite show and everybody's trying to engage together, and you have this one random person sitting there crunching on ice, disturbing the whole mood. Instead of going, stop crunching that ice, you get on my nerves. You could say to yourself, you know what? That might be a mineral deficiency. Well, that is a symptom of one. It's magnesium. And you'll know if you have a magnesium deficiency, or some of the signs would be, you're easily startled. You hear a boom, you're like, what was that? Right? And besides chewing ice, you might need some chips, some salted peanuts, or some crackers. You need salt. Another manifestation of a magnesium deficiency is you having to get up and pee all the time in the middle of the night. Now that can cause a relationship problem, because if your significant other is trying to get some rest and you up and down in the bed all hours of the night and they're a light sleeper, you're disturbing their sleep, and now they're waking up grumpy and they looking at you side like, if you would have stayed in bed, I could have got some sleep. So that is what a magnesium deficiency can do. A magnesium deficiency can also create the experience of you having Charlie horses, like that cramp in your leg or in your fingers and your toes. I remember a couple years ago, one night, I was awoken out of my sleep by a trolley horse that was so bad that I got up, ran into the living room, was on the floor, holding onto my leg, going, ha, ha. The trolley horse wouldn't let me go. My daughter and my husband was looking at me like, what's wrong with you? I couldn't explain it at the time because it was hurting so bad, but they were thinking I was turned into the exorcist. That's how bad it was. That was a severe magnesium imbalance. So as we're having this conversation about diet and what diet does to your body, if you can assimilate and absorb the nutrients or if you can't, right now, and hopefully you're jogging in your head the different aspects of how the people in your family show up and your responses. Now, your responses can be one of two things. Now, if you never heard this information before, you might be like, you know what? You get on my last nerves when you do X, Y, and Z. But now that I'm giving you this insight on what is actually happening from a nutritional standpoint, then you have some work to do. If you are the wellness conscious person in your family, then it's your job to now kind of look at what you're feeding your family and how it manifests. It's also your job to kind of be an inspector, to check out everybody's mood and see how things are flowing. Because instead of saying to them, girl, you know you need some Prozac, you need to pull it in. Or allowing somebody to give your child a drug for attention deficit, maybe you should really investigate what your family is eating, how is it contributing to their overall health, and how it's especially contributing to the relational experience of a family. Because now that we're in this COVID experience, there are a lot of opportunities to learn and grow. And sometimes that learning and growing happens because we're in close proximity together for longer periods of time. You might also find that you're in a family and you have no idea who these people are. Like, I never knew that person did that. Or they might say something to you and you go, I never knew you felt like that. So not only is this an opportunity to investigate the things that need to be addressed, it's also an opportunity to get to know the very heart of the people that you love in your circle of reference. And as you grow that experience of love for your family, you will begin to have that same level of compassion outside of your four walls. And that compassion can extend to other people, your work experience, your extended family, your neighbors, your community. You might find that you are more community connected because you understand what it means to be connected. So besides seeing this COVID experience as the new weird, I also see it as the new wow. And why do I say wow? Because when you really stay in the moment, which I talked about in another video, and you allow yourself to observe things for the moment what they are, there's so much information that you can get that helps you grow as an individual. Because again, wellness is not about the minerals, the vitamins, the homeopathics, the scans. Wellness is about how you connect successfully, or a level of success continuously growing, spirit, mind, and body. And as you do that, the need for remedies and medications dwindles, because the root cause of a physiological problem is always going to be an emotional, mental disconnection. I talk a lot about that in my book, From Panic to Empowerment, How to Stop Pain and Disease from Taking Over Your Life by Connecting Spirit, Mind, and Body. The link is below in the description. So if you like more information about that concept, I think that's a good place to start. But if you'd like to continue to get more videos about these topics, just ask questions and I'll be more than happy to create a video. But before I sign off, I'd like to recap how you can determine what's going on with your biochemistry. That's what we're talking about, nutrition. If you get a hair tissue analysis, the hair tissue analysis will show you definitively what's going on with your diet. It will tell you if you're getting enough calcium, if your iron is too low, if your zinc and copper are out of balance, if your sodium and potassium are out of balance. And that will in turn tell you definitively how will it affect your emotions. That will give you a personalized blueprint to establish better relationships for your family. At the end of the day, if you are the caretaker or the head of your family, it is your mandate to make sure that the environment that you foster and maintain is an environment of growth and calm and compassion and connection to the people that you hold dear. Because those same relationships can create such catastrophic experiences in your life that it can cause you health problems. So there is a selfish benefit for you being aware of how relationships can be shifted through digestion and emotions and minerals and the lack thereof. Because when you don't bring it into subjection, you are complicit to the dysfunction and the downturn of it. So it's like, now you know, you can't unknow, and now you have to act. So there's always going to be a call to action. The call to action today is, if you're not sure where you stand on a biochemical level, get a hair tissue analysis for you and your family so you can be on an even playing field of understanding. If you are having a relational issue, be willing to accept the fact that there is something you can do, and it doesn't mean blaming the other person. If you feel the desire to create and establish a better overall environment, be committed to all the components of who you are and recognize if you're neglecting a part of yourself, or as a family neglecting it. So if you don't have a spiritual practice, adopt one. If you don't have a mental practice, adopt one. If you don't have a physical practice, adopt one. And connect all three. And they don't have to be the same. So I woke up this morning to a really wonderful sight. My daughter was getting some paint out of our guest room. And I said, "Are you going to paint today?" She says, "No, I'm going to paint my sneakers." And she showed me these white canvas sneakers. And I went to check to see what was happening, and she created a masterpiece from her sneakers. And what made me feel so good is the fact that that activity that she was doing satisfied a physical, a mental, and an emotional connectedness. When you do something that requires a lot of introspection, like painting, then it causes you to be reflective. I will probably never know what her thoughts were, but I'm sure she was able to process something in her spirit, reframe something in her mind, and just by using the dexterity of her hands, she was practicing, focus. She may have been practicing agility, her ability to use her fingers correctly. So it satisfied all of that. Now, I can't say you're going to get that same level of spirit, mind, and body connectedness if you watch television, but you could if you watch something that was edifying to the spirit, that caused you to think and caused you to get up and move around, right? You might say to yourself, every commercial, I'm going to do X, or I'm going to take some notes on what I'm watching. So there's a lot of ways to be connected, spirit, mind, and body. Find a way that's going to resonate with you, something that you can do consistently. I walk every morning. That satisfies my spirit, my mind, and my body because I'm purging my thoughts. I'm praying while I'm walking, and I'm getting my cardio up. It's called a practice. So when you want to change the dynamic or the reality of your relationships, you must practice something concise that's going to make a shift in your spirit, mind, and body. It might be your diet and understanding what real diet does, or what the meaning of your nutritional stores mean for you through a hair tissue analysis. It could mean that you pick up a hobby. It could also mean that you start doing something that's so introspective that you learn that internally you have so many answers that you never thought you had, but you never gave yourself an opportunity to sit still to do it. So in this new weird, I call the new wow, there's so many possibilities. And if you continue to choose the possibilities that's going to bring things up instead of pull things down, you will find that your relationships will be even better than they could ever have been. Because now you're spending more time with the people that you love. You'll recognize why you love them in the first place. You'll enjoy spending time with them because now you're doing a few things. You're observing them. That's high calcium. I know that's high calcium. Look at that right there. And it becomes really fun to do because I do it all the time to my husband. And you can see the growth that you need to do in relationship to how you show up. Because guess what? How you show up to your family will be mirrored back to you. And if everybody starts clearing the road when you come, that means it's time for you to do some self-reflection. If everybody starts gravitating toward you, that means that your energy and vibration is feeding your family dynamic, and that's a positive thing. So you want to do and be aware of what's happening in your family dynamic, because either you're feeding your family life and they're giving it back to you, or you're sucking the life out of the family and they're sucking the life out of you. But you can't tell unless you start paying attention. And you can pay attention first by just observing. Just observe. How do I show up to my family? How do they show up to me? How do I perceive how they're showing up? And if I perceive that they're showing up in a crazy way, is it my issue or is it theirs? So many possibilities for this new wow. So I challenge you to take everything I just said, play with it for the next week, and we'll talk about it again in part 2 of this video. So I'm going to do a part 2. But that's not to overwhelm you. Let's just cut it off right here and we'll get to part 2. So part 2, we're going to talk about when our families show up, are we responding from a child's mind or an adult's mind? Ooh, now that should be interesting. But until next time, I look forward to connecting with you again. Be well. Take care.